Dave, are you happy to start off?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm ready to go. So just first come off the rank is the elected member bus tour. Obviously, the elected members made an idea that they wanted to go around and have a look at a couple of sites. Those sites have been listed, and we can look at further sites as well. But I suppose what we're trying to do is lock down a day, being either the 2nd or the 30th of September. That's in between the council meeting and as an elected member briefing timeframe. So we're just looking at, I suppose, whether the councillors can get back to us in relation to what their activities are going to be on those days, as to what day we can best hold the tour, and whether those 2 days might be required or just one day might be required. So just looking at what the feedback is from elected members for the 2nd or the 30th of September.
I'm fine with either date, so it's up to the others what they want to do. I'm fine with either date.
Yeah, I'm available on both dates.
I won't be here on the 2nd. I'll be a long way away.
Let's go the 30th.
Yeah, because I may be away on the 2nd as well.
The 30th is looking at the best day.
Sounds good. Yep.
No problem. All right, we'll look at it and work around it.
Perfect.
And Dave, is everyone happy with that suggested itinerary, or is there anything else that you would want to add?
There's probably a couple more that we could probably add basically on projects as we get round, and once we work out the route and how we can probably look around and then sneak off and have a look at a couple of other areas. But that was the main list of areas we're looking at going, but we might be able to drop it and see how we go, and collectively how we get everyone together to start and how we finish. So we just work through those logistics as well.
And elected members, is there anything else that you want to propose?
I'll just add one thing I was going to suggest is, so that people don't think it's a junket, are we just going to pay for our own lunch and stuff while we're out, if we're out for the day?
We'll probably take that on board with the logistics, working through that.
I think that's a good idea, Jim.
All right. So ready for the next one, the road closure process?
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Dave.
All right. I'll just get Carol to share the screen. I'm not that IT literate. So this is not a be-all to end-all in relation to how this operates. So if you click on the second slide there, Carol. Basically, what we did originally for road closures, the council historically facilitated all road closures, and in some instances did the event participation to get it going. Bear with me, I just got to bring mine up. In August 22, we adopted an event management policy and the event matrix. We've had refined that over a period of time. The matrix sets out the parameters in relation to how council's involvement is in relation to those events if we are required to do any. Also sets out what the community need to do. But essentially, council look after the main community events and nationally recognised special anniversary or ceremonial celebrations. And obviously then the other events are then later the club's external commercial or other private events. So if we go to the third slide, Carol. So event matrix is not totally clear, but rows C and D are basically the external events and private events. The A and B columns are what council look after. So A are predominantly the council-owned events, which we facilitate, and then B are major special events for the community, being the anniversary ceremonial type ones or the Christmas pageants. So we set out our parameters through that matrix and how we scale them through. Bear with me, excuse me. Next slide, thanks, Carol. There's quite a bit of legislation just associated with the road closures. Obviously, the Local Government Act. There is a substantial Australian standard in relation to road closures and signage. The Road Traffic Act is how we close roads for events. Safe Work SA generally get involved, and if there is an incident, Safe Work SA will be involved. We've also got the WHS Act, and under the facilitation of our own events, we are the PCBU, which is the person conducting a business undertaking. And then there's the bylaws, and then there's obviously the festival and events guides for local government, which is their guidelines in relation to how events are held. If we go to the next slide, the next one basically shows the logistics of the Morgan site. It was actually reduced in recent years where they did actually come down 4th Street, but now they've set back the parade commencement is down the road to the closer to the river, and they do a loop, but due to the size of the pageant, it now didn't do the loop in recent years. But you can see the complexity of the logistics for signage and also traffic management. And then down the second part of that slide is also down to the riverfront, where they close off part of the riverfront to go into there and then hold the festival. The next slide, Carol, is just the logistics for Manham, noting that there's quite a substantial road closure, and then any heavies, if they are required to get to the ferry, are required to go down other local roads. So the logistics between the two last year were they were both held on the same night, so they actually made it fairly complex for putting them together or having any council involvement. Just moving on to the next slide. What has actually changed in recent years is the Work Zone Traffic Management and Accreditation. It used to be like a 2-day course for council staff. Now it's a 3-day course. It's around about $1,250 just for per person for council staff. We do go through and get it accredited, and then we have to do a logbook record of what we do to achieve 20 hours for the year in regards to what we need to do. And in doing that, we are then accredited to then direct traffic and close a road and undertake works on council roads. The same is required for any road closures. And what we find, what we have found, and like I said, I don't know if this is totally conclusive, but volunteers can generally help, but they can't participate on road activities. They can only direct vehicles on private land, and they must be certified to do it. There are also pedestrians. They can control pedestrians under certain provisions, and they can work inside the pre-approved traffic management plan with the appropriate training. So obviously, there's still accreditations to go through to make sure that what we believe is the marshalling now needs to have actually some form of appropriate accreditation to facilitate within a closed area. But the facilitation of the closing of the area and the signage needs to be undertaken by I suppose, an accredited personnel. Next slide. Just basically summarises what is legal and what's not legal. So they're not a volunteer or a marshal can't be in there to direct or manage traffic on public roads unless they're actually trained as an accredited traffic controller. I suppose when we look at what we're doing for a pageant, if we were to engage a contractor and said to the contractor, oh, by the way, we've got a heap of marshals to try to reduce costs, then physically we're still the PCBU undertaking the business undertaking. There may be significant liabilities, which is something we still need to work through. Basically, their duties are specified in the approved traffic management plan. So in the traffic management plan, you actually have to identify where the marshals are, and basically they have to be in a certain area. And obviously there are for unauthorised or unqualified traffic drop by volunteers can lead to fines and prosecution, and obviously legal liabilities. And if there was a major event and a hospitalisation, safe work, they say may be involved, or generally they do get involved, and there may be some ramifications to council. Next slide, Carol.
Sorry, can I just ask a question, Dave?
Yep.
I was just wondering what your position is then on, you may feel this is preempting a bit what else you've got to say, but if council can approve people, because this whole process has appeared cumbersome to some events organisations, as you know, organisers, as you know, who are trying to put events on, can we can just certify and approve volunteers to participate?
The element would be that those volunteers would then come under council's banner.
Yeah.
Then they would have to be undertaken. So physically, if I was able to, and I had the logistics to do so, and this is difficult under our current employment scheme, because you can only ask our guys to do overtime as they request. we can't enforce them to do overtime. But if I said, okay, for the Morgan site, they used 8 traffic controllers last year. If I said that, okay, we only want to put 4 staff there and use a heap of volunteers, logistically we might not be able to still manage the road closure because of the amount of roads that are being closed. And then I suppose the liability comes back through to the person that's on site with that accreditation. Admittedly, they would be covered by council, but the liability would come back to the person holding that accreditation. So for me, if I held the accreditation on site, I would be in charge of all those volunteers and the whole site for the duration of that event. And what we're only looking at here is really the events the council hold. When we authorise it for the columns C and D, we have actually outsourced that to the relevant event organiser. All we've done is authorise the road closure. We haven't implemented the road closure. What we're looking at doing here is trying to, I suppose, reduce council's costs in regards to the road closure. And I suppose when you start looking at that, I think in 2019, 2020, we did an assessment of the amount of money we spent, and it was significant about the amount of money we spent. And now we've got it down to probably, I think the pageants were about $10,000 or $12,000 a shot. And then you've got the Anzac Days and any other Australia Day scenario. So we have reduced our involvement considerably and made significant savings in that field. But as far as going with the logistics of it, apart from the fact of trying to get enough people to do it on those nights, having the signage, having the time, the overtime involved, theoretically, we're paying the same or paying similar to what the contractors are being involved. They do have to travel and they do have meal breaks as well, and sometimes maybe accommodations. So there are some economies that we could save on. I suppose what we have actually looked at is obviously the second last dot point there is the logistics, the resources. The logistics are what I showed with the amount of signage, the amount of effort that goes to some of the road closures. The resources that are required are obviously manpower or labour personnel, and then the signage, and then it comes down to the timing. And what we have been able to do, and we do get a fair bit of conjecture back on this one, is to reduce the scale of the event, to try to make the event, because what people do is, what the organisers do is they'll put it in their wish list of a route they want to go. We then make contact with them to try to scale it back or try to do that to prevent a large scale event to a medium scale event. We have been successful, but it does create a little bit of conjecture when we talk to the organisers. And last year, I suppose we were able to do that at Morgan. It's very difficult here in Manning because obviously it's more complex road network. Admittedly, I did say that there is further work to do in regards to this because there is new compliance. The old work zone traffic management has changed. Years ago, basically it was like it was an Australian standard, but each state picked up how they did it. Now there's been a harmonisation across the national network, and there's still state influences, but the harmonisation is something that we're still all getting accustomed to. And it actually has major implications on just us, because for myself, I could do a 1-day course as a refresher, but now if let one lapse, I got to do a 3-day course to work out how to do road signage, which sounds like it's overkill, but unfortunately it's the liability associated with it. So I suppose from there, the next one is if there's any questions. Like I said, it's probably not a foregone conclusion that it's something that we can't not do. It's something that we've just tried to investigate under the parameters of the new legislation and accreditation. So it's something you still need to work through to bring an answer to council and how we do it. But again, I suppose for the first part of the process is reducing the scale of the council events. We've been able to do that just recently with Morgan, the RSL. They wanted a road closure. We were able to bring that back to a community event sign and do some other logistics behind it to just try to reduce council's overall costs. So it does come back to a fair bit of liaison and consultation with those organisers.
Sorry, I've just got a quick question. And sorry, I missed the start. What's the new legislation? Sorry, Dave. It's
the work zone accreditation to be a ticketed person to actually do work zone traffic management. So it's Years ago, it was actually like it was actually Australian standard based, but each state had
Oh,
their own, requirements. Now
Yeah.
it's more national and it's harmonised.
okay. Thank you.
So Dave, what's likely to come to council?
I suppose from out of this point of view is probably I suppose our position and how we can do it. I don't know, to be honest, I don't have a full-on answer for it now. But that's something I just need to work on to see and probably put a information item in relation to how we're going to deal with the up and coming pageants and what we've been able to do to, I suppose, work out a better scenario for the pageant and a better cost-effective solution to traffic management in those areas.
So Dave, if we were having volunteers do this, how many would all of them have this accreditation? All of them. So if we had 8 people closing roads.
In theory, what we'd have to do if we had 8 volunteers available, they all had, you only actually have to have one on site that has the accreditation,
Yeah.
but they have to be trained in a certain manner. And there's some which is a $300 one-day course. There's a three-day course, which is a $1,250 course. So it's the level of interaction they have in the traffic control processes on the day. But you have to have at least one person there. And if you look at the extent of Morgan, you'd probably want a couple there because there's so many various areas that need to be monitored and signed off on.
Dave, is that both those things? So you mentioned e.g. white card and whatever that was, traffic something. So they need to have both of those things. Is that
according to our information at present? And that's what we found out is these white card and also work zone, because white card normally works in the construction industry to be on roadworks.
Yep. Okay.
Is Kirsty here? Just with the costs going up, is there would there be any merit in sort of having a benchmark? This is the amount that council will invest in for the event, and then anything over that then becomes the responsibility of the event organisers, because it just sort of seemed with the events that are sort of coming up that some of them are increasing it and adding those sort of roadways on, and that sort of goes out. They've already had their discussions what they want, so they get really disappointed then when we sort of say, hey, hang on a minute, can we rejigger it a little bit? Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there any merit in just going, well, this is a cap on what we actually invest in for the road closure part? And can we do that?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult because of the 2 different configurations, because you've got Morgan that looks at a lot of road closures and Manham's got its main focus road, and you've got to close all those roads around it. They were very similar in price to do it. I suppose it comes back to how much council wants to subsidise the event. I suppose when you look at it, those major events are community based, so the pageants are community based. The only threat you've probably got is if you've got Manham and Morgan that have a pageant, Swan Reach actually have it on the oval. If another town, if Truro turned around and said, let's have a pageant at the main street of Morandi Street, then you'll be closing the Sturt Highway. It will have limitations and value to do that sort of scenario. So I think if we start going down that process and there's more towns that want to have closures for pageants, there will be significant costs that need to be reviewed, and then you'd have to cap it. You could cap the value of the Morgan and Manham and then try to reduce the scope of the closure. But your labour content is your labour content. It's a matter of laying out the signs, then picking up the signs, and then obviously the time frame of the pageant. You could probably reduce the timing of the pageant by a couple of hours, then you're reducing the labour content respectively. But I suppose when we looked at the matrix, the columns A and B are council owned or council owned or community major events, and it's whether council want to support those events, and politically it's probably right to do that. The other events don't have an implication on council. We do help in like the Sands by the River. We're going to help out the golf club by providing some bollards and bunting. That's about all we're going to do. There is no road closures associated with us or our involvement between in the matrix under events C and D. So we have scaled that all back. We used to do that, but now we're only in events A and B, and that they are council managed.
Dave, do we know what Swanreach's future? Does anybody know if Swanreach are planning to make it a road-based event?
No, no, you wouldn't know until they put an application in. I mean, they close it for the run to the reach. That is a road closure, and they pay for that. But if they turned and said, "Well, hang on, now council, we're doing it for you guys in Manham and Morgan. We want the same thing," well, then that would be a decision for council, and probably the lead time towards the application versus the pageant. We expect it within 90 days. We don't normally get it, but we'd only have a short period of time to say yes or no to it.
I can just sort of add to that if I can. The Swanreach Progress, who are running that event, from the very first year, when they were discussing it, they decided that because they had the opportunity to have it at the Oval, it was going to be much easier for them to organise without having to worry about road closures, and it just made it a much simpler event for them to organise than having to block off the main street. So, like Dave said, can't guarantee, but the feel that I'm getting from them is that at the moment they're quite happy to have it at the school Oval as long as the school is allowing them to do that.
Thanks.
Just could Manham and Morgan actually consider doing it that way and having it at the Oval like other townships do? I mean, it's a bit of a inequality for council to fund Manham and Morgan Christmas pageant and no one else.
The policy says we fund Christmas type pageants and Anzac Day, so it's not about being in Manham or Morgan, and that's why Dave said, you know, if Swanreach decide, then our policy allows that, or Truro decide. It's about the actual event, and that's why in Swanreach they pay for their car one, because it's not a Christmas pageant or an Anzac Day. So it's not specifically named Manham or Morgan, it's the event that's. And so council will have to determine, I think this is what Dave's saying in the report, whether we do look at our policy and go, well, actually, we're not supporting that, or, I think our policy at the moment sort of states we want to try and shift it to ovals and things, but it was specific that we didn't. And like Dave said, it's a political type thing. We've been doing it forever. And do you want to just go and tell those towns they can't have their Christmas pageants on their streets anymore? It's not a great look for council. So. But if things do get more expensive, then council will have to look at that.
Dave, we also discussed about the signs and potentially purchasing like Morgan having its own signs, or borrowing from each other, which doesn't work obviously when they have a pageant on the same night. But I know that that's also a cost, I believe, with the signs and stuff.
Yeah, we did work with the Mountain Progress. We brought an event trailer and had the event trailer set up, and they got a grant and they got a heap of signs. The signs we've only just been able to manage to get them and store them on site at the Manham depot. Now the signs, we didn't actually have a lot of influence into the signs they purchased. So that when you start looking at the maps that I just put up a little while ago, or Carol put up a little while ago, there may be duplications of those that we'd still have to go out and buy. But the signs from it will come at a cost, but they're a one-off cost unless they get lost or stolen or taken off or get used elsewhere. So they are a one-off cost. It's probably more the labour content at any one point in time in regards to the logistics of actually implementing and then tearing it back down. So yeah, that's probably where your majority of cost comes. Obviously, through the contractors, there is travel and their requirements. And it would be great to actually have our guys to be able to do it. But when there's a town event like in Morgan, a lot of the guys actually want to be involved in the community and actually participate in the pageant, not work the pageant. So it does become a little bit, restrictive from being able to grab our guys every year and just saying, okay, well, we want you to do the pageant this year.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave. Does anyone else have any further questions on this? No. If not, we'll hand it over to Laura.
Hello. I will just share my screen. Everybody got my screen up?
Yeah.
Fabulous, thank you. So I'm just giving a bit of a brief run through on the code of practice procedures at meetings. We've just had a couple of inquiries from a couple of elected members in the last few months, so I thought it might be a timely thing just to go over a couple of the key points in the code of practice. So a couple of the things that I'm going to talk through, and please jump in at any point if you've got any questions or would like some further information, is addresses by members, so speaking at meetings, questions, short-term suspension of proceedings, amendments, variations, recommendations and motions, conflicts of interest and confidentiality, kind of how we're going to a little bit of a change of process for dealing with those. And then I'll just give a bit of a brief update on the second code of practice, which is the access to meetings and documents, that kind of sits alongside of the procedures at meetings code of practice. So the first, sorry, I just need to move the little icon out of the way. The first section of the code of practice I just wanted to do a bit of a refresher on was the addresses by members. So this is speaking during a meeting. These are just meant to be some quick little facts to help be a bit of a reminder and a refresher. I don't think I mentioned just before, if you don't have a hard copy of this document and you would like one, we're happy to print one off and bind it up for you. So just let myself know or Vicky and we can arrange that for you if you would like one to have alongside for meetings. But basically, addresses by members, I'm just kind of coming back to meeting procedures. Wish to speak, in your code of practice, you have 3 minutes. Generally, it should be more of a debate style speak, so a bit more of a statement, succinct, include all of your questions and concerns kind of in that one statement if you can. And I can kind of give some more guidance around that if anyone would like. Just a friendly reminder, turn microphones on. It just makes that streaming part and recording a bit easier. You are not required to speak to each item if you don't want to. Raise your hand to signal to the mayor if you wish to speak. And just a general refresher about the presiding member or mayor. They obviously are allowed to speak to items and are encouraged to. Generally, the regulations state that the presiding member should speak last in the debate style. So if no one's jumping in, I'll just keep going through. So then the next section I was going to speak to is questions. So this is section 9 of the code of practice. So where possible, any questions that you might have that might be more operational, please try and send those questions through to administration prior to the meeting. Happy to answer those as we can. Alternatively, you do have the questions on notice process. Strategic questions are relevant to the decision making, may be asked when speaking to an item, so they might be part of that. Within your 3 minutes that's allowed. You might put some thought-provoking questions, I suppose, in there if you wish, to the group.
Laura, if we go back to that last one before that.
Addresses by members?
Yes. So did it say there that you're only allowed to speak once?
No, but thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So the idea is when you make your statement, it should be holistic. If you have a question in there that an administration are answering, that might prompt some further commentary, but realistically it should be succinct and not that conversational back and forth. Yeah.
And if the mover speaks for the second time, then that's it. Nobody else gets to speak. So we just need to be very aware if we're the mover. Definitely, please don't speak again so that everyone gets a chance.
Yeah. We went through questions. Short-term suspension of proceedings. They are used quite frequently, so just a refresher on those. They are to allow for informal discussion, so you stop the need for that formal meeting procedure, more conversational style if it's required. The reason needs to be stated and noted, which is happening, and it's limited to the purpose for which it's declared. So if the conversation is starting to head in a different direction, it will get pulled back in, or the suspension will need to stop. So recommendations and motions, we're kind of putting forward a bit of a proposal to the change that it's currently been happening. As you're aware, the Mayor is currently reading out the officer's recommendations, which, especially when we got to the annual business plan and budget, were quite long. So I just wanted to put this forward that it's not necessary to have them read out each time. I advise that the presiding member does not need to read out the recommendations, and the councillor who may wish to be moving the recommendation can simply state, I move the officer's recommendation as written. So when we're freeing this up by not having somebody read it out, it then provides the opportunity for, if any of the elected members would like to move an alternate motion, rather than needing to have a motion on the table, the officer's recommendation, and then kind of trying to move through the amendment or variation process, we could start with that amended recommendation first that might be coming through from the chamber. So this might be something that is useful to you. Administration, we are very happy to help with if you are thinking about an alternative motion or recommendation to assist you in the drafting of that. So please reach out before a council meeting. And someone may ask for the CEO to read out a motion, so that's in your code of practice at 16 as well. Is there any commentary or questions around that? Because that is slightly different if you choose to go down that path and implement that process.
Well,
Yeah.
Yep.
Mandy?
Yeah. Sorry. I like the fact that the recommendations or everything is sort of read out. Previous last council, it didn't happen like that. And it was just like, it just sort of seemed to, not give you time to sort of prepare then for the, what sort of is being put forward. But having sort of said that, if there's a change, that there can be changes to the motion put in, I think that would be helpful as well. So it's sort of different. So I'd like to a little bit more to take that in a little bit more and understand how that looks basically.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think initially you can speak for yourself, Simone, obviously, but when it first came up and we were talking about it, it seemed to us it would be helpful for people watching to have the motions read out as well. So in terms of accessibility of the conversation, I think that helps. And I'm personally not sure that is a major delaying factor in the length of our meetings. I think it's more our conversation style and when that runs away with us, and I think the rest of the recommendations are really great, including the 3-minute rule, but we're still getting our heads around all of that, and I'm personally really happy to be pulled up on that within a meeting. I don't take offense, it's just if I've lost the plot. But yeah, so that's my view. Is I don't feel strongly that it's helpful in any way, particularly to not read out the recommendations, but I'm open to discussion.
I'm just wondering too, for people with poor eyesight that can't read the agenda, the emotions in the agenda, or people that are indeed blind, I think they want to hear what's going on, as in the recommendation needs to be read out.
Thank you. I like reading it out. I don't like people not knowing where we're up to, so I'm happy to keep doing that if that's council's choice.
I think except when they're sort of really long and it's sort of repetitive and everything like that, then that can be as given. But the general stuff, I just find the difference between last term and this term is yeah quite large, but it makes I just find that a lot better for myself.
Anyone else?
Sorry.
Anyone else before we go to the next bit? Nah, off you go, Laura.
Thank you. I think, Simone, maybe you and I will take that offline and we might just tweak it a little bit to maybe allow for if there's an alternate rather than you reading out.
Yep.
Yep. Great. So just talking through amendments. So this is where we start to enter a little bit of the tricky territory with procedures of meetings. So under the regulations and the code of practice, this is how amendments are generally dealt with. A member who has not spoken to a motion may move or second an amendment. So that's an important component of it. It's not a motion. It's only an amendment, so you can't call a division on it, if anyone was wondering. If you move it, you've spoken an amendment, then you're taken to have spoken to the motion to which the amendment relates to. So that is confusing in itself, and as a person in those situations tracking what's going on, it does get a little bit complicated, and you have to, when they start to move quite fast. A maximum amendments of two is allowed per motion, cannot be a direct negative, no right of reply on an amendment, and once they're voted on, you only vote on the amendment itself, and then it becomes part of the motion, and then you vote on the motion as well. So it does seem a little bit like double handling in those situations, because you feel like you're voting a lot on one motion or one amendment. So we can, when they come up again, we will talk through those and we can procedurally get them right. And you just don't need the consent of the mover or seconder for an amendment, which is different to a variation. So this is the other way of tweaking your recommendation. Again, it's not to do complete opposites, but so variations are usually done through the mover with the consent of the seconder. The question of whether there is to be the question of leave to do a variation is put immediately. So, you know, it's a procedural thing. It's not difficult to deal with. It's just something that we have to do. One way we can work around this, if you're not the mover, is in the debate, it may be suggested a variation, and the mover might choose to accept that, and then we can proceed with that suggestion by a show of hands. So again, I'm not expecting you to remember this. I'm just kind of giving you a few tips, and we can help you with that if they ever come up during a meeting.
Thank goodness you come to each meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on from those nice confusing parts.
Can I just
Yes.
sort of go back there? So if one of us sort of seeks an amendment or a variation, or as we're speaking to a motion that's sort of gone up, and we've only got 3 minutes there, and that's very strict with, well, not so strict, but it is, are we putting forward our thoughts and that, or is it to ask questions and sort of stuff like that, or what's the general sort of thing? Because sometimes it sort of gets a little bit repetitive in what is sort of being said, and it becomes more of a commentary on it, not sort of a direct thing. So a little bit of guidance on that, if possible.
So on what you can say within your 3 minutes?
Yeah.
So generally you would just, you know, there's some guiding principles, I suppose, that you would probably refer to. And I think they're referenced in the front of the code of practice about it being relative to the item. And, you know, the presiding member has the ability to kind of help guide that if it seems to be going away from the item on the table. But generally, you would speak to, in that 3 minutes, you would cover off on most of what you wanted to speak to in that.
Because the point is really, sorry, Laura, the point is that you can only speak once, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's about being organised, I suppose, in what you wish to say when it becomes, when your item comes up.
Yeah, the mover gets to speak again So I guess I might move it and I might say, yeah, I agree with this. The report is great and I agree with everything in it. And then Councillor McGregor might come on and go, I also agree, but I didn't like that the playground was going to be facing north. And I'd like to know from council staff if we thought about it facing east. And then the council staff might answer and I might go, hang on. So when I close off, I might say, well, actually, you know, there was a suggestion that it faces east. I'm happy to amend that motion type thing. Is that right, Laura?
Yes. Yeah. And we can deal with that if that comes up. Yep.
So it's like the red door, blue door thing. The substance of the motion doesn't change, but just the tweaking of a nitty-gritty in it.
Yes.
Yeah. You just can't make it the complete opposite.
Okay.
All right. Everyone happy to move on?
Thank you.
Great. I'm also happy to take questions after this as well if anything comes up from anybody. So just reach out to me as well. So conflicts of interest, they are quite specific in the Act and the regulations, so they need to be made in a certain way. We've reintroduced the form, so I do leave a couple of copies of these on the table during council meetings. If you are aware that you may have a conflict coming up, you can use this form to help you articulate your conflict of interest. So it helps you understand how to describe. You need to identify if it's a general or material conflict. For those who've been in local government a long time, there used to be also a perceived conflict of interest that no longer exists. It's only general and material now. As I said before, you must describe the conflict. So what it is, it's not enough to say, I have a conflict. You must state your intention on dealing with the conflict. If it's material, you must leave under the, as per the Act. Best practice is you advise of conflicts at the start of the meeting, but your declaration occurs at the item, which is what has been occurring. I'm just rounding it out nicely on that. Is there any questions on conflicts of interest? No.
I have trouble. I mean, a material conflict of interest is when you actually might gain some monetary gain for it.
Or loss.
Hey?
Or loss.
Yeah. Or well, I'm always foggy on the general of interest where that sort of cuts off and the material conflict cuts in. If you know what I mean.
Question.
What constitutes the general conflict of interest? Is it because you're only a certain number of people that would apply to? And if so, what's the number sort of thing where it cuts off, or is it a percentage or what? I'm a bit foggy on all that.
Yeah, so rather than going into it now, I actually think the presentation that Normans gave, I think it was late last year, they covered off on conflicts of interest for quite a while, and they gave lots of examples in that. So I would recommend revisiting that training from Normans because it's very good. And I've viewed it, and it's a good refresher for even me to understand them.
Section 74 of the Local Government Act.
Yes.
Good on you, Georgia.
As clear as mud.
Yeah. Yeah. But that we can resend the links if anybody's lost them, and you can go to the section in the YouTube. You can scoot along to where it is, and you can speed up the sound as well, so you can go through it a bit faster. But that does a really good cover off on conflicts of interest.
Thank you.
So confidentiality, we've had a little bit of a change, so I just wanted to talk through that again. So I think it's a very old practice, predates me in local government, but there is no requirement to move out of confidence. What we've actually done with with items that are in confidence, there is the move into confidence. So that is the first part, which actually puts you into confidence to discuss the report and your debate and your proposed resolution. The second part, to retain something in confidence, which was previously what I think that might be referred to the move out of confidence, is now within that second set of recommendations within the report. So for good governance, to keep something in confidence, the recommendation needs to include the council's decision to retain it in confidence within that recommendation, rather than making it a third, essentially, separate set of resolutions. So it's still there. You'll just find it in that second set within the report of whether it is recommended to stay within confidence or not. So if you don't see the extra 3 recommendations from the officer in the report, it means that the officer's recommendation is that once the discussion has occurred, the actual report and documents no longer need to stay in confidence. Clear as mud? Great. So that was the main part of what I wanted to cover off on the code of practice procedures at meetings. There is also a code of practice currently for access to council and committee meetings and documents. So the code of practice procedures at meetings actually took some sections of this document into it. This document, the access to meetings and documents, is a required document under the Local Government Act. So because we have taken some things out of it and put it into the code of practice for meeting procedures, there's just an updated access to meetings and documents code. So this will come to you in the August council meeting, and there's not a whole bunch of changes, and I just wanted to talk to them at a high level, the council report, and we'll show you track changes and itemize them. But it's based on the model code supplied by the LGA, so there's nothing to, it's very similar to what a lot of other councils have. It's removed the section for public notice of council meetings in special circumstances because that legislation has changed. The live stream meeting section has moved into the meeting procedures, or the procedures at meeting code of practice. So that has come out of that document, but it still exists in a different document. And just some of the other changes to legislation that just needed to be reflected is the change in participating in meetings via electronic means. So there's some information in there about briefing and information sessions. So that's just bringing it up with model document. There's some updates to the confidential order provisions, nothing substantial, just some changes. And again, the removal of the special circumstances provisions. So the next steps are you get the report to council with the second code of practice document. It is a document that is required to have public consultation. So the report will have the officer recommendation for it to go out to public consultation. The recommendation will likely have that if there is only positive or no feedback, just to accept it for adoption. If there is negative feedback, a further report to be returned to council.
Laura, can you just go back one slide for me? So just remind me, no longer able to participate in meetings via electronic means. Is that only where there's confidential items to be discussed?
No, so that's council meetings. So that's not information sessions or briefings.
Okay.
Council meetings just need to be in person now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't relate to section 41s or other committees, is that right, Laura?
Sorry?
It doesn't relate to any of our other committee meetings, strategic growth, all those kind of.
I don't think so, but I will double check.
All right, I'm going to go around the room just to make sure everyone has a chance to answer questions. I'm going from the bottom of my screen. Councillor Myers. No, nothing?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You're okay? You've had plenty of experience. Councillor Hammond.
I'm all good as well. Thank you. Seems very clear. Thanks, Laura.
Beautiful. Councillor Schultz.
I'm absolutely awesome, thank you.
Wonderful. Councillor Warhurst.
All good on my end, thank you.
Wonderful. Councillor Barber.
Yep, all good, thanks. Not a problem here.
Excellent. Councillor Todd-McPeak.
Yep, I'm fine.
Councillor McGregor.
Yep, all good. Maybe just with the how come they're removing the public and retention recorded live stream meeting section, and because this document will go out to public consultation, just make sure that it sort of is reiterated that it is still there, because otherwise people will just see that and just go, what are you trying to hide? But yeah, just make sure that it's still there, but yeah, just
Point.
put that
Yeah,
out.
just be
Thank
clear that
you.
it's another policy now.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
Perfect. And Councillor Davis.
All good here.
Excellent. Laura, you've got nothing else to add?
No, thank you.
No one else has anything to add? If not, it's the end of our briefing. Thank you everyone for coming.